Hello and welcome to episode 12 of Courtside. I'm your host, Andrew Cohen. Courtside is a podcast dedicated to all things sports. In today's episode, I will go over all of the NFL trades that happened at the deadline and give my top 10 midseason power rankings. So sit back, relax, and take a seat. Courtside. Alright, so in this episode of the Courtside podcast, I'm going to start off by going a little bit over all of the 5 NFL trades that are made on trade deadline day in the NFL. And let's start off. The Packers traded Ty Montgomery to the Ravens for a 2020 7th round pick. Now, Ty Montgomery fumbled on a kickoff return against the Rams last week, leading the Packers to lose that game. However, in limited carries this year, Montgomery's averaging a solid about 4 yards per carry, which is pretty impressive considering he came into the league as a receiver. And coming into the league as a receiver, he's also caught 15 passes for 170 yards so far this season. While he has had trouble hanging onto the ball and has fumbled twice this season so far, the Packers lose their true third down back in Montgomery in this trade. That being said, the Ravens add a true third down back in Montgomery and can now use Javorius Allen more in the running game to give Alex Collins a break. However, Allen has 30 catches this year, twice as many as the supposed receiving back in Montgomery. So it's going to be interesting to see how Montgomery fits into Baltimore's offense. But considering all the Ravens gave up for him was a 7th round pick in 2020, I think they got a steal. Alright, next up, the Packers also sent starting safety and defensive mainstay Clinton-Dix to the Redskins in exchange for a 4th round pick. Whereas the Montgomery trade will most likely not affect the Packers too much, this Clinton-Dix trade will. He was one of the few consistent performers and mainstays amongst a Green Bay defensive group that has just changed personnel a bunch over the last few years. And I know that if I was a member of the Packers, especially Aaron Rodgers, Aaron Rodgers who's trying to carry Green Bay to the playoffs on an injured knee, I would not be happy about this trade at all. Now for the Redskins, they're going to add Clinton-Dix to a strong secondary that already includes the likes of Josh Norman and DJ Swearinger, and Swearinger has 4 picks already this season, so they're playing pretty well already. The Redskins have a strong, reliable defense that could carry them to the playoffs, and if Alex Smith and the offense continues to do its job, I think they could be in the playoffs. And listen, I didn't think they were going to make the playoffs at the beginning of the season, but after seeing what the rest of their division looks like, I think they should at this point make the playoffs. All right, next up we have Demaryius Thomas to the Texans. Now, I believe this was the first trade made on Tuesday, kind of sparked the headlines, sparked the moves. But the Texans lost Will Fuller to a torn ACL last weekend, and then they traded a couple draft picks for veteran wideout Demaryius Thomas here. I think Thomas is a good receiver, but he has been on a steady decline the last couple years, and he has dropped way too many passes for my liking. However, I do like this move for the Texans because it gives them another talented receiver to take attention away from DeAndre Hopkins, which was kind of what Will Fuller did. I remember right after they traded for Thomas, somebody asked Hopkins, is he going to replace that role with Will Fuller? Or, what's Will Fuller's loss going to mean to this team? And he said, Will Fuller he made my job so much easier, right? He's taken away defensive attention and in general just doing a great job of being the number 2 receiver for the Texans. So we'll see what Demaryius Thomas does. He's really in no way similar to Will Fuller. They're completely different types of receivers. But hopefully for the Texans, he can replace Will Fuller's production. All right, next up, another wide receiver being traded. We had Golden Tate traded to the Eagles. Now, this trade really confused me from the Lions' perspective. They're still in the playoff race, since the NFC North is pretty wide open right now, with 3 teams having the chance to make it from that division if they all play well in the second half of the year. And they trade the guy that is maybe Matthew Stafford's favorite target in exchange for a 3rd round pick. I kind of feel like this trade is a little Bill Belichick-esque. I think Matt Patricia, GM Bob Quinn, both formerly of the Patriots organization, looked at their team and said, let's send a message to the locker room and trade a talented veteran to get everyone in the line. And I don't like that. They're not Bill Belichick. They should have kept Golden Tate. They really should have. But from the Eagles' perspective, this is a great trade. Outside of Alshon Jeffrey and Nelson Aguilar, they really just don't have any reliable receivers. And none of the guys they currently have could be categorized as a quote possession receiver. They've tried to make Nelson Aguilar into that. I don't think he is that guy, right? They need a guy that can 3rd and 5, get open, make a catch for 5-6 yards, pick up the first down, move the chains. I think Tate can do that, and I think he's going to have an impact right away once he steps on the field for Philly. And then finally, we have the Dante Fowler to the Rams for a 2019 third and a 2020 fifth round pick trade. I've heard a bunch of people talk about how this trade makes the Rams the clear favorites in the NFC, and I actually disagree with that. I think they are already heavy favorites just looking at that conference, looking at the other teams there. But this trade definitely benefits the team. I think that's pretty obvious. On a Jacksonville team with a deep and talented defensive line, Fowler struggled to get playing time. But, he's been fairly effective when he's in the game. I think he had 8 sacks last year. He already had 2 this year. And keep in mind, he is a former number 3 overall pick. I think he had a knee injury in his rookie year, forced him to miss the entire season. But he still is a talented player. Don't get that wrong. And for the Jaguars, this trade does make a lot of sense because they do have Calais Campbell and Yannick Ngakoue at defensive end already. And considering his worth on the trade market and the fact that he's in a contract year, Fowler just wasn't getting enough playing time for the Jags to keep him. Alright, so now let's get into my 2018 NFL Midseason Power Rankings. I'm going to do just the top 10. And starting off at number 10, I had the Carolina Panthers. Now, coming into the year, I had the Panthers winning under 9 games. However, they have proved to be a pretty solid team all around. You have Cam Newton having his best season since his 2015 MVP campaign. He's been taking care of the ball with a 13-4 touchdown to interception ratio. The running games looked good with Christian McCaffrey averaging about 4.6 yards per carry, as well as adding 44 catches for 300 yards out of the air. My only problem with Carolina offensively, though, is the receiving core. Although on pace for his best professional season, Devin Funchess, at least in my opinion, is not a number 1 receiver, at least not yet. And outside of Funchess, they really don't have anybody that's emerged as another reliable receiver this year. DJ Moore, first round pick, I think it's a lot to ask for him to jump in and be the number 2 receiver in that offense, although I do think he's going to have a big second half of the year. You have Torrey Smith, a veteran, kind of a journeyman, played for Philly last year. He's been solid in the number 2 receiver role. Then you have Curtis Samuel, a slot guy. He's been okay. But overall, I just don't think they have anybody that can be reliable and provide consistent wide receiver number 2 production. Defensively, the team's been about, it's been middle of the pack, slightly above average. However, they've only allowed 2 opponents to score over 30 points this year. And that trend could continue in the second half of the year. So I have them at number 10 in my 2018 Midseason Power Rankings. All right, number 9, I have the Washington Redskins. Now, similarly to the Panthers, I doubted the Redskins coming into the year. I did. I had them winning fewer than 7 games, but they are proving me wrong. They are. Alex Smith has been great. He's been good under center. He hasn't been great. But he's limiting turnovers. He only has 2 interceptions on the year. So that's been good for the Washington Redskins. The running games looked really good. Peterson's turning back the clock. Chris Thompson's doing his thing, catching out of the backfield. However, no receiver on this team has more than 18 receptions. That's going to be a big problem come playoff time when a team often needs a receiver that can make a big play when needed. Right? You have Paul Richardson, who has 18. I think he's the leader. Outside of them, you have Chris Thompson, who I think is about 28. Jordan Reed, who has about 29 at the time of this recording. So they need more consistent play from those receivers. But the real strength of this team is the defense. DJ Swearinger he's just been amazing at safety with 4 interceptions, and now they add Clinton-Dix to join him in the defensive backfield. You add a strong linebacking core, and then Josh Norman at cornerback, and you got a defense that's shutting down opponents. And besides New Orleans putting up 43 on them in Week 4, the Redskins have allowed no more than 21 points to any opponent. So that's pretty impressive. Redskins at number 9. All right, number 8, I have the Pittsburgh Steelers. Maybe a little bit low here at number 8. But they got off to a slow start at a 1-2-1 record, and I really can't shake that. But they have won 3 straight since. Big Ben's having a great year at quarterback. James Conner's doing a very nice job of filling in for Le'Veon Bell's absence. And Pittsburgh has over 400 yards of offense in 5 of its 7 games so far this year. So, as usual, the offense is looking really strong. No question about that. The Steelers haven't looked great defensively at times, especially on the road. But the defensive unit's doing enough to win games. I have them at number 8. Chicago Bears, they're sitting at 4-3. But if you guys listen to my NFL preview from before the season began, you will know that I was very high on the Chicago Bears coming into the year. In fact, I said that they would be the surprise NFL team of the year. Now, I'm not sure if I would call them a surprise because I expected them to be good, but they have certainly been a very strong team. If Mitchell Trubisky could just be a little bit better at quarterback, just a little bit, I think this team is a legit shot at a deep postseason run. However, I do like the talent surrounding him on offense. Jordan Howard, Tariq Cohen, Trey Burton, Allen Robinson, the O-line's been pretty solid. So I think they can be fine offensively. But if Trubisky gives them better quarterback play, I really like their chances in the NFC playoffs. However, the defensive side of the ball is where this team really separates itself from a couple other strong NFL teams. I mean, aside from a couple games against the Dolphins and Patriots in the middle of the year, where Khalil Mack did not play at full strength, they've been really solid. I'm not too concerned about those games against Brock Osweiler and the Dolphins or the game against the Patriots because, again, Khalil Mack didn't play at full strength and the Patriots have been on a roll offensively. Also, each of the team's 3 losses has been by 1 possession or less. And against New England, they were just 1 yard short of tying the game on a Hail Mary. That was a crazy game. I think this Chicago team is very strong, but I only have them at 7 due to its record and its current quarterback play. Okay, number 6. I have the Minnesota Vikings. Now, I know they had that weird fluky loss to the Bills early in the season, but this team has looked pretty darn good besides that game. They tied against the Packers, a good team, lost to the Rams, a great team, and lost to the Saints, a great team. However, they haven't beaten the greatest opponents, and that's kind of the problem with the Vikings right now, as far as power rankings go. They're beating the bad teams and losing to all the good teams. That's the reason they aren't in the top 5 of my midseason power rankings. However, I still believe this team is very, very strong. The defense has forced 9 turnovers in the last 4 games alone, and additionally, they've only given up more than 375 total yards of offense once to the Rams. That's going to be a common trend. Just keep that in mind. But offensively, this team has been unreal. And I didn't realize this until looking it up before recording this, but Kirk Cousins is on pace for 5,042 passing yards this year, which would be good for 9th all-time in a single season for passing yards. He's also on pace for 32 touchdowns and only 8 picks, which is elite quarterback play. Long story short, Minnesota is getting its money's worth for Kirk Cousins. You also have Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs on the outside doing a great job. Latavius Murray doing an amazing job again, filling in for the injured Dalvin Cook. Make no mistake, this team is still a strong Super Bowl contender in the NFC. All right, next up, at number 5, the Los Angeles Chargers. Last year, the Chargers defense really kind of burst onto the scene, and this year they've been pretty solid again. Even without young, talented pass rusher Joey Bosa, whose foot injury at the beginning of the year seemed like he was only going to be out for a week or 2. Here we are sitting week 9, he's still out. But they forced 2 turnovers every week between weeks 2 and 6, and they added another one last week against the Titans, or in week 7 against the Titans. They've also allowed over 400 total yards of offense only once, which was against the Rams. There's that trend for you. And then there's the offense, led by 37-year-old Phillip Rivers and his 17-3 touchdown to interception ratio. I know that ratio's come up a bunch, but I think it's one of the more important stats for quarterbacks. Then you have Melvin Gordon and Austin Eckler, who have just been dynamic out of the backfield. And as usual, Keenan Allen has been very steady on the outside. The Chargers have scored at least 20 points in every single game thus far, and they have shown no sign of slowing down in the second half. All right, number 4, the Kansas City Chiefs. You may be thinking this is a little bit low, but just wait till the teams you see above them and hear me talk about them. But for the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes and that offense has just been firing on all cylinders all year. The young quarterback is on pace for a 52-12 touchdown to interception ratio. there's that ratio again, as well as over 5,000 passing yards. He's actually projected to finish with more passing yards than Kirk Cousins, so I guess he'd be 9th, Cousins would be 10th. Anyways, it looks like he's going to be the MVP and his team a top 2 seed in the AFC. Kansas City's one loss came on the road to New England, so it's not like they lost a bunny of a game. The defense, though, is a big question mark for this team, and it's the main reason I don't have them in the top 3 for my midseason power rankings, and not including when Cincinnati crapped their pants in Kansas City a couple weeks ago. The fewest total yards this team has given up is 385. That is extremely concerning for a team with Super Bowl aspirations. Number 3, we got the New Orleans Saints, and this is the one you could maybe switch it with the Chiefs, but I don't think so. I think the Saints are above the Chiefs right now. After a Week 1 shootout loss to Ryan Fitzmagic and the Bucs, the Saints have bounced back to win 6 games in a row. The same defense that gave up 48 points to Tampa Bay in Week 1 has allowed 23 points or fewer in 5 of their 6 wins since. The Saints defense has also forced 2 turnovers in 3 of its last 4 games, and the offense has been amazing as well, scoring at least 30 points in 5 of their 7 games, and of those 5 games with at least 30 points, the offense has actually put up over 40 points. To me, this team has just one of the best chances to come out of the NFC. They have a great mix of offense and defense. So I have them at number 3 in my midseason power rankings. All right, number 2, the New England Patriots. The Patriots started off at 1-2. They looked terrible offensively. Everybody was calling out Tom Brady. Oh, this is the end. This is the end of the dynasty in New England. It's not. But since then, New England has won 5 straight and scored at least 38 points in 4 of those contests. Sonny Michel has looked great for New England, and to me, it looks like he was worth the high draft pick the Patriots selected him with. And then, of course, there's Tom Brady, who is having just another great season at the age of 41 and silencing the haters once again. The defense hasn't been great, but then again, not many defenses in the NFL are great anymore. However, they have forced a turnover in every game and enforced at least 2 in 7 of their 8 games thus far. So right now, I have the Patriots coming out of the AFC. And finally, at number 1, the Los Angeles Rams. Now, this is a pretty obvious pick, I think. The Rams are the last undefeated team in the NFL, and not only are they winning games, they are dominating most of their opponents. They've scored at least 33 points in 6 of their 8 games thus far, and are averaging about 443 yards per game, second in the NFL, behind the Buccaneers. Additionally, Jared Goff is on pace to finish with just under 5,000 passing yards on the year. And then there's Todd Gurley, who is on pace for 1,600 rushing yards. That's really good. And how about 30 total touchdowns, which would be second all time in a single season behind only LaDainian Tomlinson. That is insane. Then on defense, the Rams are forcing a lot of turnovers and have only allowed over 400 total yards of offense once all year to the Vikings in Week 4. But of course, they combated Minnesota's 446 total yards of offense by putting up 556 of their own. So if the Rams continue to play the way they've played to this point, they will be making the trip to Atlanta in late January. Thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode of Courtside. Join me next time where I'll talk a lot about the NBA and maybe go over a little bit of MLB free agency. I will also do another edition of Sports Theory, as well as debut Courtside horror stories. And remember to subscribe to the podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you may be listening. Signing off, this is Andrew Cohen. I will see you next time.